Right, all right. Mark van der Vijs, how you doing, brother? Are you well?
Doing very well. Oh yeah, life's good. Uh, Last month of the year, very good. Had a very good year actually, and yeah, just got back to Singapore. I just did my last trip this year, so hopefully I'll spend a few more weeks in Singapore now. No more flying. That'll be
You're
great.
not going to be joining me in Abu Dhabi Finance Week, the Falcon Kingdom next week?
I'll leave that up to you. I think you can do it better than I can. So it's for you.
It's all good, man. You've earned your stripes, right? You don't have to do these conferences anymore, but I'd encourage you to check it out. Maybe wrap it with a F1 next year would be good. And I think, as I told you, for 2025, don't forget, put El Salvador and Argentina on your to-do list. But if you're going to do Saudi, you may as well go in March and at least get the F1 in there, right? And then check it out as a whole. So we got a lot to jam on.
Good.
One is, of course, something that you and I have been waiting for, as has the rest of Crypto Nation, which is, of course, 100K of BTC. I think I was even telling you, with you and I exchanging like a few handles on X, that, had the meme ready, everything like that. But it's like the teaser keeps on kind of going. But here we
Yep.
are again. Maybe it's Santa who's going to give the final delivery, 98,500 or so. I believe the peak on spot was, at least based off of this, and I think this is from Binance, was 99,588. Should we just talk a little bit about this level? Like, how important is it? Is it important? Why is it taking maybe so long to kind of go through it? Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's pure psychological, of course. It's the 100,000 is. I mean, if I look back at interviews I've done over the past years, people often ask me, when would you start selling?
Yeah.
And I often said, when it hits 100,000, I'm probably going to sell some coins.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are actually doing that. I'm not doing it actually. I mean,
Yeah.
I've completely changed my mind now, obviously. But I think if you're not really so deep into Bitcoin and you see it hits 100, you're like, okay, I'm going to take some profits. Because most
Yeah.
people don't realize where this is going to go. It's the 100,000 seems like a magical moment, and
Yeah.
it is a magical moment. But
Yeah, of course.
it's
And
just,
if you look at a big chart like this, it's like,
yeah.
wow, look at that, right? Yeah.
But I mean, looking at all the news over the past weeks again, this is just going to continue, man.
Yeah.
It's a big hurdle, the 100,000, a psychological hurdle. There's a lot of selling going on there, and a lot of people don't understand why it cannot break through it. Yeah, it's simply because a lot of people are selling it. It's just an anecdotal evidence, but I know a lot of people actually are selling some of their holdings. Not a lot, but it's some.
Yeah.
And if a lot of people are selling some, it still adds up to another Bitcoin to break through it. And I think that's what's happening right now. But then again, once we're past 100,000, that selling will drive right away. People will wait. They will see, wait for the next big thing. So I think once we're over 100, it could go very fast. Could get 120 very soon.
Yeah. No, I would tend to agree with you. I think that the convexity above 100 is really going to surprise, people. And not to forget,
I think a lot of people, they assume that Bitcoin will not go far over 100. And that's just wrong. It's just completely wrong. There's simply so much more demand, I think, over 100 than below 100. It's validation of Bitcoin, I think.
I think also a lot of this is a lot of psychology that's linked to trading normal TradFi assets, right?
Yep.
Which tend to then have a lot of mean reverting over cycles, like frameworks, historical kind of references. And here we obviously talk about something that, structurally speaking, as long as fiat and TradFi is going to be printing and adding to the money supply, continuing on. One of the other things I wanted to chat to you about was actually, I think, something that you were tweeting. And this was, of course, you're prolific on X. And this was HUT, right? Can we maybe just remind the audience your history with HUT 8, and then, of course, what you were talking about? Because this is, of course, also linked to the infamous and famous Michael Saylor and what he's been kind of crusading about for quite a few years.
So I was involved in the founding of HUT 8. I was a co-founder of HUT 8 back in, it started in September 2017 after a night of drinking in Ibiza.
As you do, as all great ideas come.
We rented a villa there at 5 a.m. We came back to the pool for an after a night drink. And then, Sean and I were chatting and came with the idea for HUT 8. Basically to launch a company that invests in Bitcoin miners and basically become the first large Bitcoin miner. At that moment, Bitcoin mining was mainly done by small groups, by retail.
And it was very dominated by China at that cycle time.
Well, it was difficult to get access to miners. And our plan was actually to raise money in public markets to buy these miners and then keep on raising money. So basically, keep all the Bitcoin on our balance sheet, which was nobody else was doing that. Everybody was selling their Bitcoin for new mining equipment. We were like, no, we keep our Bitcoin, and we've done that. So the company has over 9,000 Bitcoin on its balance sheet. It's still the top 5 of companies in the world with Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Being number 1 being MicroStrategy, number 2 being Galaxy, number 3 I think is Marathon nowadays. Number 4 is another one. Anyway, but there's 5 companies, and we're number 5. And so basically, what Hut 8 is doing right now is they are going to raise $500 million and invest this in Bitcoin, like MicroStrategy does it. So basically, copying the MicroStrategy playbook, and they're not the only one doing this. But there's a number of other companies that have announced this over the past couple of weeks. It's basically showing that the world is changing very, very fast. Corporates, it's not acceptable for corporates to do this, and I think the floodgates are slowly being opened, and this is part of why next year is going to see such another increase in the Bitcoin price. That's another reason why nobody should sell at 100,000, because you're going to regret it eventually. I mean, if you need the money to sell, right? But that's another thing we can talk about. Very soon, you will not need to sell your Bitcoin anymore, because you can make money on Bitcoin without taking real risk, without taking any risk.
Yeah.
But so basically, Hut 8 is going to buy Bitcoin with money they're raising, and other companies will follow suit. And basically it leads to more demand for Bitcoin and less people selling it.
Okay. So, I mean, just so it's clear to listeners and everything, this is by no means financial advice. Do your own research, the usual. I just don't want it to be misconstrued. But I'm quite interested just on talking about this a little bit more from the thematic aspect of mining. And then, of course, corporates moving towards diversifying their cash holdings, right? So from fiat to Bitcoin. Obviously, the most famous has been Michael Saylor, who's done that to a staggering effect, going from zero to hero every kind of cycle, right? And of course, it's very much in full kind of hero mode this time around, but it's very different because he's slowly moving from heretic, crazy, loony to now there's a lot more genius, visionary. Of course, the truth is always nowhere at the extremes. It's somewhere kind of in between. And you and I both know, and I believe you probably also played this, but this is the MicroStrategy chart, right? Which is by all means huge. And these are just spot, right? So easily, where were we at the start of the year? About 39. I mean, that's just insane, right? When you think about kind of that move on a 1 year kind of time frame. This is obviously different play. My understanding is MicroStrategy was already a software kind of SaaS company, neither here nor there. But what they started to do was when during the ZERP era, he was looking around and saying, well, how much are we actually earning on our fiat? And that led him to kind of really look at Bitcoin. But more importantly, I think also something you and I have discussed many times, where if you're the CFO or a treasury and you have a fiduciary duty to your investors, and you've seen what's been happening on the fiat side, it makes a lot of sense to diversify into Bitcoin and then maybe after that into kind of more crypto as well. And again, you're not talking about you don't have to go all sailor in, whether it's 5% or 10%, it's still better than being over leveraged to kind of fiat as a whole. Why do you think, and I know you always tell me to be more patient, but why do you think it's taken this long? Why are we still discussing this like it's a novelty? Is it institutional? Is it regulation? Is it just that's always how it is with these things? I mean, you've caught many waves of things that are breaking and you've been very prescient. And I guess to me, it's just so stunning that this is still something that's taken so long to kind of work its way through kind of the corporate kind of ladder, right?
Well, I mean, is it really that long? I mean,
maybe I'm wrong.
We're so deep into this world. For us, it seems like it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, we were all there when Michael Saylor announced his first raise, and but most people didn't see it until much more recently, actually.
Yeah.
So, I mean, generally, I think many companies survive because they don't jump on every hype, right? And that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you're a big corporate, you have to convince the board that is a good idea. You have to get buy-in from the management teams. It takes time. It's not like it was a startup like Hut 8 when we started it. We just bang, do it, right? We just started and off to the races. Once you're listed, it's a different story. But I think for most corporates, it's the fastest they can run. And because of these announcements over the past weeks, a lot of companies will look at it now as well. And likely we're going to see a lot more happening next year. It's going to take at least 6 months for every company to get this through. I mean, I have a few friends that run public companies in the US. When I talk to them, I try to tell them, guys, look at this. But they're like, I can't bring this to my board. They will not accept it. It's not our core business. And trying to explain to them, your money in your bank account is going down by 10% every year, right? And it can actually also go up by 50% or 100%.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, it takes time. And, there's always people they're innovators and laggards.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy to see that OpEd is doing it. As a co-founder, it sort of still makes me proud, even though I'm not involved at all in the company anymore for a long time already. But it's still nice. Yeah.
So just going on, and I thought I had actually the list easily here, but this is not by no means exhaustive, but I should add 8 on this. So these were some of crypto kind of miners, some of the main ones like Bitdeer or crypto kind of related. So it's interesting to see that, because even going back to the OpEd chat, that's not at all-time highs either. And I'm just kind of curious why that's the case, given that BTC is at all-time highs. Because if we go back here, I think we looked at the weekly.
Well, the thing is, Bitcoin mining is not a super profitable business, right? I mean, you got to always stay on top of what you're doing. You need to have the cheapest source of energy. You need to have the best miners, and there is intense competition. Over the long run, you make real money, but it's short run, it's hard, and it's extremely volatile. And the hash rate is at an all-time high, even. So the margins for the miners are not that high, actually. They're pretty small. I mean, they're doing well, but they're not pretty small. But I mean, I think they announced in Q3 that they mined Bitcoin. I think it was $38,000 per coin, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, they make real money on every Bitcoin they earn. But the fact that they are raising money now to invest in Bitcoin instead of mining it, it means they're de-risking it a little bit.
And it's also, it's also time travel at the end of the day, because maybe you can mine X over 2025, it'll cost you X, but if you have that X today, you could go buy it out right now from a context, rather than mine at a much, much higher price. One of the other names that we've talked about, and we'll get to Tesla soon, but you were also very prolific on calling coin, even going back into the last kind of bear market and talking about out the money kind of call options. What's your kind of update on kind of Coinbase and where things are going? I mean, these elections are just phenomenal, I would imagine, for this company and any U.S. kind of centric crypto player.
Yeah, I mean, the elections were very positive for Coinbase. I think they're gonna once they're gonna announce their results over 2024, especially their Q4 numbers, I think they're gonna blow away everybody. It's much better than Wall Street will expect now. So I think the stock price in Q1 will explode. I've got some options expiring in March before that. So it's short-term options. So I think there's real money to be made there. So I think Coinbase doesn't necessarily follow Bitcoin that much. One reason why I hold it is because it's a bit broader. It follows the altcoin markets probably, at least it follows also the altcoin markets, not just Bitcoin. So Bitcoin goes down a bit, they may go up because altcoins go up. So it's an interesting that I think will do extremely well. And it's nice to own options in it. I mean, it's like Galaxy Digital. And Galaxy Digital is maybe even a better company to hold than Coinbase. One thing is,
like a leverage bet on the bull cycle, in essence, you mean? Or
I think so. I really like the Galaxy team. And Galaxy is not an exchange, right? They do many different things in the space. They trade, they do investment banking, they hold tokens.
This is Novo's setup, right?
Correct. Yes. And they're not back at their all-time high either, but they're getting pretty close now. And I think they. So one thing is, Galaxy is listed in Canada at this point, and they're trying to list in the US. And the SEC, Gary Gensler was slowed down.
Completely against that.
The moment they announced that they're going to be launching in the US, this thing is going to be boom. So that's so Coinbase and Galaxy for next year, I expect fireworks. And,
it's amazing. Everyone's got in crypto this God candle, which is of course the election. It's like Galaxy did like 50% on that kind of period, so which is pretty funny. And speaking of Coinbase, you probably caught this. I know I retweeted it, but there was a really good piece where basically Brian Armstrong, who I think is actually one of the best CEOs out there, just point blank, he was basically saying that any law firms that they have to deal with who is hiring from SEC or anyone that was basically anti-crypto and going out, you could forget our business. And I thought it was a really kind of strong point, right? To be just voting by the services you want to be. And I've already seen the Winklevoss bros from Gemini responding to that. So I thought that was just an interesting kind of development, a little bit of a side kind of tangent. But of course, we've talked about Tesla. This year was the whole path to 50K kind of piece. We also did like an update. Interestingly enough, there was a mad reset on the stock, which I think you and I agreed and you pointed out is probably more just the deregulation blanket that was on it from the previous administration, still current administration, until Jan 20th, at least, of next year. Again, not yet at all-time highs, which is quite rare for the big kind of tech names, because most of those are kind of breaking out, right? Or to kind of new ground. You also had this great kind of repost of like how people just don't understand how far away they are on automated kind of driving. No one else is even kind of close. What are you thinking in regards to like next year to kind of watch out for? Because one of the interesting things of this administration is it's very going to be pro-America, which also means really looking for enhancing production, manufacturing from the US of A. And I can't think of a better pioneer on a large scale perspective than Tesla, right?
I mean, every car that Tesla sells in the US is produced in the US, right? They were thinking about expanding to Mexico, building a plant there. I think that's completely over, that idea. I mean, they have a plant in Berlin, in Germany. They have a plant in Shanghai, of course, but those plants do not produce for the US. They produce for other markets. They're a real American company, and they are very well positioned for the Trump administration. Tesla will be volatile. A lot of people don't really understand it. There was a whole discussion last night, actually, on Twitter that I jumped into for a bit. I mean, I didn't really participate, but I was looking at it. Robert Skobleiser on Twitter, I think. He was saying that Toyota will develop a robot taxi, so we should watch out and short Tesla. When I read that, I realized these people just don't understand. They really do not understand.
I thought it was incredible. I saw it as well. I was just like, you got to be fucking shitting me.
I'm sure Toyota can design a very nice looking robot taxi. The only thing is they are missing the fully self-driving. They're missing the AI. To me, it's like, people are so stupid. But then I realized that they don't have the time like I have, right, to go deep.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, I was like, maybe I should just jump in and tell these guys that they have no fucking clue what they're doing. But then I'm like, no, it's a waste of my time. And that's how the market works, right? Some people are selling so others can buy. But it also means when I see these posts, I realize, that's why if everybody would see the opportunity, you couldn't make money with call options because the whole market would immediately absorb all the information. But it also means Tesla will remain volatile for the coming year.
Yeah.
But eventually, this is going to be the biggest company in the world. It becomes clearer and clearer to me. We're moving in the right direction. Tesla robot taxis will become the dominant player in the new world of autonomous driving.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to be the Optimus robots. The combination of those two, that's going to be the world that we'll live in maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years from now. And so hold on to your Tesla shares just like you should hold on to your Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And everyone who's seen that interview, and we'll keep obviously reflagging it because it's a great foundation piece. But everyone's just kind of blown away because, like, I think what it really captures what you've been saying is Elon understands ecosystems, right? Yeah. And he understands taking something from concept, IP, developing it and being able to scale it on a mass. And that's just something that most people can't do. There's a lot of people who may have pioneering robotics tech or breakthrough here, but can they actually be producing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of millions in a few years? It's just not going to happen. Right? And he's really just solved for it. You outlaid very well there. EV, storage, automation, robotics, AI, right? And also just changing paradigm. What's fascinating to me is it's not just a company. It's not just even the plus 30 to 50x. It's the ripple effects that it's basically going to be setting the waves for, like that will change society. As we talk about in that piece where you're saying your car will drop you off wherever it is, then it will go work for you, right? Or your Optimus will finish working for you and then it will go do some extra work somewhere else. And everyone kind of becomes this almost like walking, talking / private equity venture fund yourself, right? And that's just fascinating to me. And then also the robot tax, as you said. One of the other things that I wanted to touch on, and I think I'd sent this to you. I don't know if you had a chance to go through it, but it was, of course, something that I think is super exciting, which is this. This was the Wall Street op-ed on DOGE that basically Vivek and Elon had put forth. If people have not seen this, I would highly encourage them to check it out. We'll put a link in the notes. But in essence, it's explaining the whole idea behind DOGE. It's this task force. It's going to be disbanded on July 4th, 2026, which is, of course, about 6 months before the midterms. So as we all know, there's a red wave. And it's really eloquently written in very, very plain English. It's not by any means onerous. For people, everyone, of course, knows Elon. You love him. Vivek may be a little bit less known, especially for people outside of the US, but Harvard-trained lawyer, also an entrepreneur by himself, was originally a presidential also kind of candidate, but has really stayed on the forefront of backing Trump from very, very early and being very vocal, being very articulate. And again, is also part of the young guns. Like, I think he may not even be 40. Like, that's the beautiful thing about some of these people that are coming in the new kind of administration. And this, Marco, I'll just share it for the people. Like, there's one of the, I think, the most important Twitter handles to follow, which is, of course, the Doge Twitter handle, where they're basically highlighting the government spending, or even more precisely, just how bad the government spending is, right? And giving context to it, which I think is great, because I think 9 times out of 10, to your point, it's not a question of IQ, it's a question of time and bandwidth, right? Does the American voter have enough time to actually see how much waste is happening? And I think this is one of their key kind of strategies is going to be like, okay, maybe we can only change a small bit, right? But what we can always do is bring sunlight to the misallocation and basically crony capitalism and corruption. But Ole, with that as just kind of giving a bit of a segue and kind of explaining it to folks, what are your thoughts about Doge? Or what are your thoughts about Elon and Vivek? And where do you think this goes?
I think it's fantastic. I mean, it is so long overdue. Governments have only grown, not just in terms of number of jobs, but also number of regulations.
Yeah,
I said a few years ago already that for every new law that you want to bring to the table, you have to delete 2 other laws.
yeah.
And that's never happened, right? It's just the number of laws only goes up, and if you just look at the tax code in most countries, you can't even read it. It's like it's even in a lifetime you may be able to read it and understand it. That's not normal. The tax code should be 3-4 pages maximum, and in a language that's maybe not everyone can understand it. I mean, anybody that has a normal university education should be able to understand the tax code without a tax lawyer. I mean, I used to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on tax lawyers every year just to pay my taxes, right? That's fucking crazy. And this is just one example. I mean, every government department that I work with, I wouldn't call the people lazy, but it's just their work culture is different. They're not incentivized to work hard. They're not incentivized to look for solutions. The only thing you want to do is protect their own job by following the rules and not instead of thinking with you. I mean, in a way, you pay their salaries, but they don't see it that way. It's so
there's an entitlement that's vested very much in, right?
Yeah, so shining light on it like they're doing is fantastic, and it's opening a garbage can or a can of worms, whatever it's called. But things are going to come to light, and I think I don't know how many people are going to be losing their jobs, but it is going to be a large number, and there's going to be a lot of pushback there. That's why you need this account, because anybody can see actually what's wrong with it. Many people probably don't see it, right? It's like we see it because at least I see it with my companies and my dealings with governments in different countries. They don't work well. Most people don't notice it. Most people, their tax return, they don't even.
Because they're not incentivized to, right? At the end of the day, right? It's impossible to kind of fire them or very hard It's not really clear who is reporting to who or who controls who and who can fire who. So it kind of feels like before you've even kind of gotten off the ground, right? There's a great interview. We'll put the link on the show notes, but I don't know if I sent you a lot of stuff, but so
I was in Lombok over the past week, so I had a bit of time.
I know. I was like, listen, how could I mess up his vacation? But I mean, I know you're a beast in regards to absorbing information. But it is the Tucker Carlson interview with the president of El Salvador. So he does the interview with the president of El Salvador. And basically, Tucker is just asking a very simple question. How can such a poor country, which is the murder capital of the world, become one of the safest in the Western Hemisphere? That's literally just what he's asking from a very first principles, right? No resources. But what is very much shown in that interview is resourcefulness, right? But there was also a part where they're talking about the decline of nations and where things get wrong or where things get too unregulated. And I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but it was kind of like California spent something like, I don't know how many billions for 200 meters or 80 meters of rail track. And it took like 10 years, right? And maybe this is the one. High-speed rail originally projected in 2008 to cost 33 billion. Now projected to cost between 88.5 and 130 billion, right? So it's just insane. Like these are almost like made up numbers. Yeah. And his point was like, this is already telling you like you're closer towards the end than the beginning. Now, California is probably the most extreme example maybe in the US in regards to the wokeistas, like things really kind of going on, even more regulations than kind of anywhere else, and a lot of kind of infighting. But what it kind of reminds me of is, and I don't know if you and I have jammed on this, but it's hard to be a dictator nowadays in the world. It used to be really easy pre-internet, pre-like streaming, pre-like smartphones where anyone could record you, right? Because you could just get away with literally not even murder, but like mass murder, and no one would be none the wiser. But I also feel like that's what's happening now. It's hard to get away with this, and it will continue to be harder because it used to be that Congress is going to pass something. It's like 3,000 pages, right? And you have to read it within a ridiculous amount of time before they vote on it. And now, of course, with AI, it's going to be super simple to see, okay, where's the weeds? Where's the vested interest, right? And put that out completely publicly. So I could almost see like DOGE eventually leading to something that's on the blockchain, right? In regards to being verified and so on and so forth. So I think it's really, really great. And I'm, first of all, really excited for the US and Americans in general. And hats off again to the elections and those results. But I think also the ripple and the signaling effect it sends to the rest of the world is really, really interesting, right? Yeah, anyway, that's just a bit of a side tirade. I thought that was interesting. Have you heard about this, Norway wall of shame?
Yeah, unbelievable. Billionaires leaving because they're not able to pay their unrealized capital gains taxes, and then they're being put on a wall of shame in the Socialist Party headquarters. It's a joke.
It's again one of these things where if they weren't as lucky a country to be as rich as they are in energy, and to their credit, had put it in a fund, and it's one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world, and also to their credit in regards to that sovereign wealth fund, great transparency, right? You can literally see how it's distributed, the asset class. And I think that's actually by itself should be a beacon for a lot of other sovereign wealth funds in the world, which tend to have a lot of obscurity. But this to me just reeks of like the arrogance of entitlement and thinking that you're right and correct above everyone and talking down to everyone else. Like it would be a very different case. I think if energy was solved for, or if they didn't have those kind of resources. But like it's a bit of a disease that you and I have seen in Europe, right? And we're seeing a lot more of these initiatives, especially towards Bitcoin and crypto, on these taxing unrealized gains. I mean, the only pioneering thing that Europe has is setting the bell curve in regards to regulation, right? Setting the bell curve in regards to literally, it seems, stifling innovation and so on. And again,
I see it declining. And it's really fairly recent. I had a discussion on Twitter about this.
Yeah.
It's been going on for a longer time, obviously, but it really became clear to me only during and after COVID. That's the moment I realized, okay, they're not going to solve this anymore. they're not seeing what's going to happen. I mean, I mostly look at Holland, which is my home country, which has a terrible government. Not just the parties that are being voted, but the people that are basically the ministers, the people that run Holland. It's a bunch of fools. I mean, they shouldn't be there. I would never allow these people to run one of my companies because they can't do it. They're not the right people for the job. That's already a big problem. Then there are many of them are career bureaucrats. They don't understand what they need to do to solve problems. It's unbelievable. It makes me so sad, and it's only going from bad to worse. Partially because of social media, I think. But
yeah. How are they getting these roles? Like, is it just populism? Is it just like they're telling people just like the most
get voted into government? The other thing is, these people, they earn 150, 200,000 euro a year. I mean, who wants to work for 150? I mean, sure, there are a lot of people that want to work, but you will not find top people to do this. I mean, maybe I should just jump in and join the government in a way to help. But I'm not going to be sitting there being attacked day in, day out on everything I do and then get paid, 200,000. People don't do it. That's what I like about Singapore. The president gets paid $5 million a year here.
Yeah.
Look, if
and
you pay
damn
people
good. He's world class.
$3 million, then you get enough people. Don't try to save money on those things because you're going to earn it back easily. So Holland is, and not just many countries in Europe, are just going down the drain, and they may not even see it. I mean, I think the general population doesn't even see it yet. It's when you talk about it on Twitter, they're like, "Don't be so negative." I'm like, guys, I need to point this out because if I don't do it, nobody does.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. And hats off for doing it because there's also, for everyone who's talking about it publicly, there's probably 10,000 to 100,000 people for each person who's talking publicly who are feeling the same thing but are not going out there, including also a lot of people like yourself who are very well off. They don't need to do it. So I really appreciate you at least being vocal about it rather than just sitting on the beach, right, at the end of the day, or flying in and flying out as you kind of choose to. So is this still like final destination Europe? It's just going to be a vacation zone for the world. It'll be impossible to make any money there. It'll just be the place you fly into, spend money, and then fly out.
Over the next couple of years, yes. I mean, look, in a society where nobody has to work anymore, things could change. Maybe tourism becomes actually a very important thing. It's possible, right? Who knows? I mean, where things are going is that basically robots will take our jobs. Robot taxis will transport it everywhere. I mean, everything will become free in a few years. So that may change a lot, but may change things a lot. But the period to get there is going to be hard, especially for Europe. Once things are, I don't know, in 10 years, maybe everybody's going to get a universal basic income. And things will be different. But until then, it's going to be hard. And that's the period we're going through now. You need good leaders to go through it, and they're not there. No. I feel sort of, at least the Netherlands doesn't have a leader at all. They're just leaders.
I struggle to think about anyone that pops out in Europe as being kind of prolific or trying to do something. One maybe exception was I saw there was someone who was voted into the European Parliament from Cyprus, young YouTube influencer, and they've just been exposing all the cost and all the spending and whatever. Right?
Sure, but that person has no experience either.
No, I know what you mean, but that's literally like the only thing that I've seen being an outlier. Like, they're not going to save Europe. Don't get me wrong. It's just fascinating though to watch just how wrong they are and what's happening. And will a country like Germany get to its senses and, let's say, leave the euro rather than kind of play this charade and this train crash that's going to take 5, 10, 15 years? I mean, you could argue we're already in the train crash, right? It's just how many carriages are going to get destroyed, or do you just think there'll never be a political will for anyone to be able to lead?
No, they won't. I mean, the politicians don't want it. They want to keep on using the current system. It's going to take too much time anyway to get it done. And the train crash, we're already in there, but basically it's too late to brake. I mean, even if it's not braking right now, you still hit the other one. And it's not going to happen. I mean, Germany is in a very bad situation with the car companies going down the drain really, really fast now. I mean, this is a couple of months ago, I was like, it's on the horizon. Now it's actually happening already. This week, Volkswagen, the workers are on strike.
And it's insane. Like, they're asking for, I mean, I get it, but like, you're asking for confirmation protection, but your industry is going down the drain. Like, what good's it going to be, right?
It's crazy. And the unions are they're dumb. It's like, For Audi, I was reading an article last night that the unions are asking the management to keep producing basically diesel and gas powered cars instead of full EV because it's better for workers. They shouldn't even be involved in this kind of discussions. In fact, the management makes a decision here, and if there's no demand for these things anymore in the future, the demand's going to be zero. So why do even? It's just, I mean, I could never work for these companies anymore. I used to work for Mercedes-Benz. I'm so happy I'm gone, and I'm
It's
actually
crazy.
actively telling friends, actively telling them, people working in the automotive industry in Germany, say, find another job, man, before it's too late. I mean, if you get out now, you may be able to find a job at Tesla or another company, but in 1 or 2 years, all your colleagues are going to be looking for a job, and it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And most
Yeah.
still not doing it. Maybe that's why they're still there, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. It's tough. I mean, I've seen it in finance as well, right? Just that structural kind of change kind of going through. Yeah, it's just phenomenal to watch. And of course, this is even pre-Trump coming in. Almost certainly we'll see some form of tariffs come into Europe. And this was also very, very clear to me, I think also to you as well, when the whole synthetic NATO, Ukraine, Russia conflict happened. And as soon as Germany cut itself off from the energy of Russia, i.e. cheap energy, to be able to have lower cost for massive production, and it's an exporting nation, that was kind of already the proverbial nail in the coffin, right? After the green movement and all the other kind of crap, right? That has also kind of played out. So yeah, fascinating on that side. Wanted to take it just back to kind of crypto, just from the context of, we already talked about the 100K. It's also very interesting to me what Saylor has been doing, being very aggressive, buying Bitcoin up here. From a technical perspective, this guy's not going to ever sell any Bitcoin. So he's consistently taking supply out of the market, which to me is only going to make that jump past 100K that much more visceral and that much more harder. One of the interesting things I've been seeing on MicroStrategy is there's, of course, these levered MicroStrategy ETFs, because everyone says crypto is like rat poison dynamite. Some of these ETFs are the actual, like if those the devil's work at some of these ETFs, because they'll give you like the leverage for everything. So like there's a few that are a 2x leverage MSTR. And of course, that gets really, really tough when you have a stock that's done the moves of MSTR. And they've gone from disclosing their holdings, as is usually the case, to now that they won't even disclose it. So probably a lot of these block trades that we're actually getting in MSTR are literally just these ETFs trying to match it, right? Because the banks will no longer kind of want to kind of bear that risk. So that's something that's really fascinating and interesting for me to watch, and I'm paying attention to. And also when we do get to the end of this cycle and there'll be a correction, MSTR is going to be the 800-pound canary in the coal mine, right? But I think for now it probably gets a lot more insane, before anything else. I think even prior to the election had a very simple, I don't think it was aggressive take on BTC getting to 150K, right? So with 250 being topsy. And now with this administration, and here we are, baby, live as we're recording, 100K.
Really?
Yes.
I cannot believe I missed it.
Yep. It may have been the alert that went through because there was a beep. That was probably
I saw my phone was zooming a couple times. Like, okay, I'll check it out later. Unbelievable. So we're live.
Yeah.
Well, later we can
live.
say we were live when it happens. So
exactly. Yeah. This is epic, man. Well done, Satoshi. We're all Satoshi, right?
We did
it. This is huge.
Wow.
Now, what are your thoughts? I mean, you've been in this since 2012, 2013. You've been an operator in it. You've been an investor in it. What are your thoughts, man? I mean, this takes the space to, here it says we're at 3.5 trillion. Bitcoin's, of course, the vast majority of that are 2 trillion. I mean, it's insane, right? I was looking at this stuff when it was in the $100 kind of range.
Now we passed 100,000. Now the floodgates will open. Corporates are coming in, nation states are coming in. And the other thing is also, I was on a call this morning with people from Babylon. Do you know Babylon?
No, I did not.
Babylon is basically the eigenlayer for Bitcoin.
Okay.
Eigenlayer is restaking of Ethereum. Basically, this is staking of Bitcoin to basically secure proof of stake blockchains.
Yeah.
This is going to be the way. It's like a DeFi thing. This looks to me fairly safe. I'm doing a deep dive actually this week on it.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be the next big thing for Bitcoin, and people will not have to sell their Bitcoin anymore.
Yeah.
To make a return on it. So these things together, wow, it's going to be the next big thing.
Yeah. No.
So for me, this is more bullish than this. It cannot get. Everything's coming together. Bitcoin now over 100,000. We're there.
Yeah. What's also crazy to me was when going back to our conversation about like why we've not seen more corporates like MicroStrategy. And of course, I don't mean like that extreme, but like saying you have $100 billion cash, put 5-10 into BTC as just a hedge versus fiat. And funnily enough, it's like we're actually seeing some sovereigns like leapfrog that. So now in the US, we of course will have a federal proposal from Trump. There's of course the Pennsylvania one as well, where they want to do up to potentially 10% of their treasury. But there's potentially going to be 10 to 20 other states in the US alone, right? That are going to be looking to also have their own state level Bitcoin reserve. We know there's an article in Brazilian Congress for potentially purchasing up to 18 billion. And these are the public ones. So you have to think that there may be some others that are thinking about it. I definitely am going to be waving and crusading about this over Abu Dhabi Finance Week, because if you're talking about parts of the world who can move quickly and in size, it's the UAE and its Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and some of the Gulf kind of states, right? So then the question then comes, look here, we're already 101, right? So the question then comes, as I was saying, pre-election, I thought 150K was very much easy. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is everything that we've seen in the US, progress, the green lighting of the ETFs, Coinbase's success, all these startups, has actually been against a very anti-crypto regime and regulatory standoff, right? There's now the very kind of famous Marc Andreessen interview on Joe Rogan that was basically talking about people being debanked. You and I had a side chat about that. A lot of pressure on anyone that was kind of holding the crypto kind of line. And I think what we'll probably see in the next 4 years in the US is what we would maybe have seen in 8 or 12 years under previous administrations. So hugely bullish in regards to builders, workers, I think also capital flowing into projects and companies, right? I don't quite know what that relationship will be to price in this cycle. It may be something that we will see more fully reflected, let's say in the next halving, right? But with that said, and also assuming from what I could see, these Bitcoin reserves in the US, in the sense of from a federal level, my understanding is, it could take 1 to 2 years. On the state level, maybe it can be quicker. Maybe it can be six to 12 kind of months. We also do know that probably the Trump administration will move a lot quicker than usually the case. But I guess this is all a long segue to kind of ask you, we're above 101,000. Alts have started to rally over just the last few weeks. Where do you think like this can potentially go, right? When you look at something like here, this here is the alt market cap chart. We're literally only gotten to the previous market's highs, right? Literally a few kind of days ago, just this kind of week. We obviously know there's been a huge amount of capital that has gone into assets globally. So net, if you had to standardize this, it's much, much smaller percentage-wise to total assets today in the globe. What's your thoughts in regards to, quote unquote, the easy move, where it maybe gets a little bit more choppier? And okay, when does it kind of feel a little bit long in the tooth? And maybe when you're just given the answer.
I mean, my target was always about 250 for this cycle. I still have the target at 250, but the closer we get to 250, I'm going to look at what's happening in the market. I mean, if you see that all corporates are buying and nation states are buying, we're going to go so much higher. I mean, we could literally go to $1 million in this cycle because of this. But we can't say it right now. It's good to see we're finally above 100. It's going to be interesting to see where we're going to be 24 hours from now. Are we going to stay above 100? And if we do, are we going to go much faster, which I think we will. So I'm extremely bullish. And
Okay. Good stuff. Well, listen, man, I know you got to jump on a space on X or something kind of like that, see what's kind of going on. Appreciate the time, and we'll chat soon again, man. All right.
Sounds good.